Jupiter Intelligence in Astrology, Part 1, Jupiter with Ketu or Sun. When Jupiter is conjunct Ketu or the Sun, it activates two of the most profound forms of intelligence, existential intelligence and intrapersonal intelligence. These intelligences don't shout, they resonate. They guide a person inward and upward at the same time, inward for self-awareness and upward for meaning, truth, and a connection to something larger. With Jupiter and Ketu, the intelligence turns inward and philosophical. This is where existential intelligence emerges. You start seeing beyond categories and conventions. You don't just ask what's true, you ask what's essential. There's a kind of built-in detachment here. You're not interested in status, appearances, or even success in a worldly sense. What pulls you is something more abstract: wisdom, liberation, understanding the nature of suffering, meaning, life after life. You might be drawn to spiritual philosophies, ancient teachings, or intuitive systems like astrology or mysticism. The mind is reflective, symbolic, and wired to seek timeless truths. Placed in the 8th house, this combination gives a researcher's depth with a mystic's soul. You might dive into transformation, death and rebirth, the occult, healing, psychology, or anything that unpacks what's hidden. You ask questions others avoid and find clarity in uncomfortable places. In the 12th house, the focus turns even more inward. Solitude, renunciation, spiritual service, retreat. This is the intelligence of monks, mystics, quiet philosophers. You may experience loss early in life, not as punishment, but as a way of loosening attachment. You grow through release. Now with Jupiter and the Sun, the intelligence becomes active and identity-based. This is intrapersonal intelligence. You don't just understand big truths, you live them. You know who you are, and you're driven to align your actions with your core values. This isn't surface-level confidence, it's the kind that comes from reflection. You observe your own thoughts, you regulate your behavior, and you're often the one others come to for advice, perspective, or moral clarity. You don't just ask what's right, you ask what's right for me in this moment, aligned with my truth. In the 1st house, this becomes the guiding force behind your entire personality. You carry a natural dignity, and people trust you. You may not talk a lot, but when you do, there's a sense of purpose behind your words. In the 5th house, this intelligence comes through creativity, children, education, or teaching. You're someone who shares what you've learned, not as dogma, but as lived experience. In the 9th house, you become the seeker-teacher. Whether through travel, study, or spiritual practice, your life is shaped by a desire to grow and to guide others to do the same. Whether through the stripped-down depth of Ketu or the radiant clarity of the Sun, Jupiter brings the same core thread, a drive to make sense of life, not just intellectually, but morally, ethically, spiritually. This kind of intelligence doesn't ask for applause, it asks for authenticity. Jupiter doesn't want you to be smart, it wants you to be true. Jupiter Intelligence in Astrology Part 2, Jupiter with Ketu. When Jupiter is conjunct Ketu, the intelligence deepens into something timeless and detached. This is the purest form of existential intelligence. Jupiter already governs meaning, ethics, belief, and vision. Ketu removes attachment, ego, and distraction. Together, they strip intelligence down to its essence. You're not just thinking philosophically, you are philosophy in motion. You live with a subtle awareness that what most people chase might not really matter. Truth becomes something you feel in your bones, not something you argue about. This intelligence expresses itself through a quiet pull toward the abstract, the invisible, the eternal. You may be deeply drawn to spiritual teachings, ancient texts, or symbolic languages like astrology, metaphysics, or mysticism. You're not always interested in proving what you know. You just want to understand, and often you do, in flashes, in dreams, in long silences. The mind functions like a channel here. It picks up on what can't be seen but can be felt. You often just know, without needing step-by-step logic. In the 8th house, this intelligence turns toward hidden knowledge, psychological transformation, and the mysteries of life and death. You might become a researcher, a mystic, or a healer. The mind dives deep into trauma, karma, the roots of pain, not to dwell, but to liberate. You're not afraid to look into the dark because you're searching for what's true beyond appearances. Often, you carry a kind of emotional X-ray vision. You can see what others hide. In the 12th house, this pairing dissolves the boundary between personal and universal. The intelligence becomes dreamlike, meditative, and spiritually transcendent. You may be drawn to ashrams, monastic life, healing work, or artistic solitude. You might lose interest in traditional success altogether, not out of failure, but because your soul is oriented elsewhere. There's often a subtle loneliness here, not because you're isolated, but because your mind is tuned to a frequency not everyone hears. Your intelligence thrives in silence, reflection, retreat, and sacred spaces. Even in public or professional life, Jupiter Ketu tends to express through teaching, spiritual guidance, counseling, or any form of meaning-making that moves beyond ego. You could be the quiet guide, the intuitive mentor, or the person people turn to when they need perspective on something they can't put into words. You don't provide answers. You help people remember what they already knew inside. What sets this intelligence apart is detachment. You're not here to impress. You're not here to win. You're here to understand. You may feel out of step with others, especially early in life. But as you mature, you realize your intelligence isn't meant to be loud. It's meant to be true. Jupiter with Ketu doesn't just ask, "What do I believe?" It asks, "What's real when everything else is stripped away?" And your entire way of thinking becomes an ongoing answer to that question.